Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Discover New Music podcast from Pelt Music. Shortly, we will be joined by Bait, and we've recently featured not one but two of their tracks on our Discover New Music playlist over on Spotify, both TV personality and drama. So we'll be talking to the band about those tracks in just a second. But before then, please, the usual reminders, if you would, follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at Pelt, and we are on Twitter and Instagram at Pelt Music. And if you would, please do hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, wherever you're watching or listening. Well, welcome everyone to another edition of the Discover New Music podcast, where we discuss the latest tracks and albums coming from great young bands from across the country that we look to put a spotlight on. Today, we're joined by Michael from Bait. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks, Paul. Thanks for having us. Apologise for my background. It kind of looks a little bit like I don't know, the broom cupboard with Andy Peters back in the 80s in the children's television, BBC.
In the pandemic era, it's become quite popular to try and spot embarrassing things in people's backgrounds, actually. So I'm hoping that you haven't got any embarrassing books or items hidden away.
There's probably a few embarrassing pictures of me and family members. I should imagine. I can see a few now, but I'm not going to point them out.
No, we'll leave that to people watching on YouTube to see if they can pick those ones out. Well, absolutely delighted to have you on with us, because obviously it's a busy week for yourself this week, as the band Bait are going to be releasing their debut full-length album on April 1st. Yep. It's called Sea Change, and we're going to dive into Sea Change in just a little bit.
Yeah.
But before then, we always start our Discover New Music podcast with the same question, because it is all about discovering new bands. So hopefully there's listeners listening today that aren't familiar with yourself and your previous escapades within the music industry and of Bait. So we always start off with our origin story. So could you please just tell people listening today, how you arrived at this point, releasing music under the Bait moniker?
Right. Well, it's quite a long story, but I'll try and keep it as succinct as possible. I've been playing in various bands and had various releases with different labels and stuff over the years. And when I was, I'll start at the beginning. When I was around in my sort of early 20s, I was in a band called Ingerica, and that was kind of a three-piece sort of punk metal band, and we were signed to Sanctuary Records. Released an album called There Are No Happy Endings, and I was the bass player in that band. And when I finished with that band, I was like, I'd like to do my sort of own project and start writing my own music and fronting my band. So I started a band called Baddies, and I was the singer and guitarist in that band. And we released two albums, one called Do the Job and one called Build. When that all finished, I was kind of a bit exhausted and a bit like, do I carry on in the music industry? Do I just go and work on a building site or do anything else? I met up with a friend of mine, Luke Branch, and we formed a record label, Cool Thing Records. And the reason for that was that it just meant that we couldn't be dropped. It meant that we were totally in control of everything. And we was like, okay, we'll start doing that. But we started doing two bands kind of at the same time. One was called Asylums, which I play bass in and he sings. And the other project is Bait, which I sing and play guitar in and write the songs, and he plays bass in that with me. And that's kind of the origin story of Bait. We released an album in 2017, which is it was an 8-track album. I was calling it a full album at the time, but I think really I was being a bit generous to myself. And it only had 8 tracks, so it was kind of a mini album. But this is Sea Change that comes out now this Friday. Well, on the 1st of April, depends on when this airs. April Fool's Day. It's that'll be our kind of debut full-length album with a nice vinyl that you can get, transparent purple. I'll probably show you a picture of that a little bit later.
Yeah, please do. We'll get on to Sea Change in particular in a minute. But it's quite a funny debate, and I'm sure there's music anoraks out there that all have their own opinions over what constitutes a full-length album or an EP or a mini album. Or these days, I quite see the word mixtape used quite a lot. Obviously, as someone involved in a record label, it's probably quite interesting to get your thoughts. Obviously, you say, is there in your head set length that justifies calling it a full length?
Well, for me personally, no. The way I kind of look at it is that, you've got records like Nighttime by Killing Joke, which have got 8 tracks on them.
Yeah.
And that was my measuring stick for when we did the first album in 2007. I was like, well, that album's got 8 tracks on it. Obviously, they were probably a lot longer, and they probably only did eight tracks then just to fulfill their contract to make sure that they had enough, material to go out so it constitutes as an album. But I'm not really precious about that. I just think that whatever makes the album sound the best, whatever presents it the best way. An album, in my opinion, should take you on a journey, and you don't just to kind of make up the numbers. I don't think it's right to just throw a duff track on there.
Yeah, definitely. I have to agree with that. And obviously, every band that we feature on this podcast has featured on our Discover New Music playlist over on Spotify. So we like to ask questions about the song that is featured on there. And Bait are actually quite unique. I think you're only the second band I've interviewed where we've actually featured 2 of your songs on the podcast. So we've got 2 songs to on the playlist. Sorry, so we've got 2 songs to ask you about. And I'm going to switch the order I was going to ask them about him, because actually the second one I was going to talk to you about was Drama, 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 Drama. But you've just referenced Killing Joke, and actually that song gives me massive Killing Joke vibes when I listen to it. So we might as well start off with Drama. So obviously Drama, 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 great title, and great song. We've really enjoyed it, hence it's on the playlist. What can you tell listeners today about that song, about the themes behind the song, and just in general about the creation of that song?
Well, firstly, thanks for putting it on the playlist and giving it a pump. I do really appreciate that. But the track was I actually wrote the main riff. Like, it was I'm always kind of recording ideas down, and I just have almost like this diary of like guitar ideas, vocal ideas, lyric ideas, all these different things that are just like kind of stored in my phone. God bless Apple. And so I had that, like, it was just this mean riff and kind of idea, like, quite a while ago actually. And when this happened like way before lockdown initially, like the idea was there. And when I was actually driving to the studio, I genuinely, and this is a lyric that was in the song, I genuinely saw a man walking into town, bag, with his trousers around his ankles, like kind of, and I thought, that's a real sad sight there, and it made me think about the fact that we live in a society these days where we want everything now. We're being really impatient, and sending a text message and wanting a response within seconds. And if you don't, you'll get that. And I hate it when people do this. If you don't answer them, they'll send just a question mark. I find that incredibly rude, but people do that. But it's because we're impatient and because we want everything now. And a new song comes out and you want to be able to go on YouTube or Spotify or somewhere immediately and get it, and we're just impatient that way. So the bones of the track were written like that. But when lockdown came in, and this entire record, like the album, is kind of like a docu record of my experiences and feelings throughout lockdown, that just amplified it. It just made me feel anxious and kind of like, that I could really give meaning to it and make it fit in with everything else that was there. So yeah, it is basically just a fizzed up bottle of anxiety.
And it works really, really well, and obviously it's relevant to all of us. And listening to the lyrics, hopefully not everyone has seen a man walking down the street with his trousers down. But a lot of the themes in there, are stuff that I think listeners can definitely relate to, and definitely over the last couple of years. So it does work really, really well. And obviously, the other track we need to talk about is TV Personality. Which is obviously the most recent single you guys have put out. And we made the exception for and added a second track from the same band to the playlist. So we have really enjoyed that track as well. So please do, again, tell us, what the themes of that song, if they're any different, or what can you tell us about that song in general?
Well, again, like it it is something that each track is about kind of my experiences through, and a lot of these are shared, you know, and maybe people don't, maybe I'm making a mistake by kind of talking about these things because people probably want to forget about it, but I think it has affected everybody. So in some, I'm hoping in some way people may be able to get something out of at least one of the tracks, you know. And TV personality really is about us all becoming TV personalities. You know, we've had to. This is, you know, we're doing this lockdown has created a lot of positives. We wouldn't be able to do this, you know, otherwise we'd be kind of having to, I'd have to travel to where you are to do the interview. We'll do it on a phone, and it may be not necessarily being as easy to do it. And this has made things a lot easier, but we have all had to adapt, and we all have had to learn. And we are kind of all, as I say in the track, you know, we're streaming from the rabbit hole, you know, we're down the rabbit hole and probably feeling a bit bad, but we're streaming, and we're looking for, and on social media and everything else, you know, we're looking for likes, we're looking for acknowledgement, we're looking for relevance, and all those things. And it was my kind of interpretation of that feeling.
Yeah, and again, listening to it does hit home. And as you say, these last 2 years have hit everyone. You know, no one's been able to avoid it, and we've all felt the same thing. You know, which is quite unique. I think the album as a whole, obviously, the themes, as you said, run throughout the whole album around the pandemic, and obviously, it's going to be really interesting for listeners to be able to hear that whole album and obviously relate to it, hopefully. So, I mean, diverging slightly from the themes, you know, as we've touched on that, Sea Change obviously comes out on the 1st of April, digitally and on LP. So what should listeners expect sonically and musically from that album?
Well, sonically and musically, I'd say it is a little bit of a melting pot, you know. It has, because of the nature of how it was recorded and developed, a lot of it was demoed, at least in this room.
Yeah,
you know, I had to I sung in the lower register of my voice, and there's a lot of spoken word and kind of almost poetry that's on it, but there's the extremes of that side of me, and then there's the kind of real extreme kind of manic side as well. So you've got everything from, you know, my kind of internal rantings to myself to literally me barking like a dog at the end of the record. And that's 100% true. And we'll maybe talk about that a little bit later in more depth. But I think if I had to kind of compare it to other artists, because that's, I guess, the lazy way of doing it.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Everything has to have a label.
I think there is a little bit of Nine Inch Nails in there. I think there is a little bit of Afghan Wigs in there. I think there is a little bit of Depeche Mode in there, and there's certainly a bit of Killing Joke in there. In terms of probably vocally, there's a little bit of a likeness, and I've always loved. Well, my two favourite guitarists actually are Andy Gill and Geordie from Killing Joke. I just love those kind of guitar styles, and that real kind of post-punk thing. The more melodic stuff that Geordie does, but also the real kind of angular and spiky stuff that Andy Gill did.
Yeah, there's certainly a real mix of genres put in there, and obviously all mixes together very, very well to come out with, you know, the album, which is obviously. We've had a sneak peek of it, and it is a fantastic album. So obviously listeners, need to try and pick that up. And I believe you might be able to show them one of the fantastic LPs that you guys are putting out.
Oh yeah. So 1 second, I will. You probably hear a lot of creaking. It's not me. It's my chair that's creaking.
It's not your back.
Yeah, it's not the bag. I'm sitting in this chair for too long. So I'm just going to grab one. People that are watching and not listening will get to see this.
Yeah.
So this is the record for the LP, and that's the back. I designed it all myself. Those that order it from us will get this kind of exclusive press shot.
Wow! Yeah.
And lyric sheet kind of on the back, which you can only get it from us, and it's on transparent purple vinyl.
Yeah, for those that can see it on YouTube, that is a thing of beauty. And if you are listening on any other platform, obviously head to the band's social media channels and band's website, and obviously online shop for Cool Things Records, and check it out for yourself. That is definitely a beautiful looking vinyl.
Thanks a lot, man. I mean, so
yeah.
Just to give you a little bit of context behind that, obviously I do a lot of the product design and stuff myself. In fact, I do the product design myself because it is fiercely DIY. I've even got the records in this room with me, and I'm kind of like fulfilling those myself. Obviously, you can get it in the shops from the 8th of April as well. But all of the press shots and all of the cover shots were all done by my good friend Danny Roughton, who is a film photographer. So everything was shot on film. You should check him out on Instagram. All his work is absolutely amazing, but it's all shot on film. So it's like,
wow, yeah,
you've only got 36 shots to get it right. You can't have a million goes and then edit it all afterwards. It's like, it's got to be, he shoots it, he develops it, and then he sort of passes it over. And when I told him about the title of the album, ideally I wanted to get like a shot of the estuary going mad and catching a big wave. The chances of getting that were just so bleak, mainly because it's an estuary and so many variables. You're relying on the weather, you're relying on everything, you know. And he had that shot. He already had that shot available, you know.
Oh wow!
He was like, "What about this?" And I was like, "It looks amazing." Because like, it really does look amazing. And to me, it was just in my mind. I was like, "Yeah, pink wash on that," and we're there, you know. And in terms of the back, you know, I've always loved bands like Therapy. And I always like the typography on the back of like that kind of early 90s sort of stuff. And so I knew what it should look like and what the font should be. And I just kind of started like, I even bought a font for it. You know, I didn't lift one for free.
Yeah.
So I've got my money's worth out of that font.
Yeah, you certainly have. Yeah. And it looks does look fantastic. You must be really obviously proud with your efforts, both on the musical side and obviously the production side as well. Especially, you know, as we have been hit by this pandemic. So you touched on a lot of the, you know, writing, recording, you know, taking place in the room that you're in. How did you find recording an album during a pandemic? Did it in some ways work better, you know, more in your favor, or was there times of struggle? Talk to me.
I think the answer to that is actually both.
Yeah.
I think that as I said at the beginning of the conversation, like, you know, I've been in lots of different bands that all have different working methods, you know, and processes, and collaboration is something that I really do love, and I now crave it after this, because although there was collaboration, it did feel very solitary at times, you know. So the process would be kind of me having an idea of some kind, creating the project, then sending that over to my brother Jim, who's the drummer, him playing it at home on his electric drum kit, sending it back, then kind of like adding any sort of finishing touches, and then sending that on to MRE, who's the producer, and he's also in the band as well, to mix it. And we had like guide vocals on there. Luckily enough, we did get to a stage where we'd come out of lockdown, so I could actually do the final vocals on the record in a studio. But they were all done in like 2 days, and it was all kind of handheld. It was very sort of like relaxed, and I love that side of it.
Yeah.
But something I do feel like the next record that we do, I would almost love to have the luxury of going into a studio for like 3 weeks and completely collaborating from start to finish, you know, to make it so that it's not all on me to do it. So what kind of comes with being a megalomaniac, I guess, is the severe pressure that comes with it.
Yeah. And you must like the pressure, because we've already mentioned obviously the multiple bands that you perform in at the minute with Asylums as well. And obviously being heavily involved with Cool Things Records as well must take a lot of your time. But as far as being an artist that is able to self-release through that record label, how much of a difference, other than as we've already touched on, not being dropped, but how much of a difference is it to you to be able to put music out under your own label?
I think it's something that I take for granted, actually, too
Yeah,
much. Just thinking about it right now with you asking me that question, it is really a great and unique position to be in, because we can release whatever we want to.
yeah,
Everything comes from out of our own pockets, and we work very closely with the bands, and we develop them. Luke and myself do come from like an education background as well, so nurturing people and giving them support and advice, not just like on their music, but like on their artwork and their marketing strategies and those kinds of things, is really rewarding for us.
yeah,
It is also great to be able to release your own music and put stuff out as and when you want to. That is great. It's a great feeling, and I am very grateful to Luke and to Haley and all the team at Cool Thing to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, definitely very unique position to be in, and obviously sounds like it definitely has its benefits. And another benefit, I guess, might be having first tap on the best new bands coming out. Have you got any hot tips of new bands we should be checking out that are perhaps on Cool Things Records?
Well, okay. So, firstly, I think you should check out all the roster. It's like these are our babies. How can we pick one? But to let you know about some new releases and bands that we're quite excited about. One's called A Cause in Distress. They're going to be having a record that will be coming out. We haven't got a release date for that at the moment, but they're just putting the finishing touches on it, and it sounds great. It's kind of like it's kind of got like electronic, like trance vibes, and then it goes kind of really dangerous at certain points. It's got kind of Tom York-esque vocal that sits over the top of it. It's great. It's really great. It's hard to describe, because I think it is very much its own animal, which I like about music. And we've got a great artist called Blab at the moment. She just come off tour with Get Cape, Wear Cape, Fly, which is great. We've got a lot of other bands on the roster as well. You should check out Asylums. We're going to have another album coming out as well, for sure. If you're looking at other bands outside that I personally like, if you want me to offer some of those up,
why not?
I really like the band. I don't know if you've heard of them, VR Sex.
No, I haven't. No, I'll check them out.
Yeah, there was a record called Human Traffic Jam that they released a couple of years ago, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. They do another band called Drab Majesty as well, which has kind of got that sort of Tears for Fears vibe to it. VR Sex is kind of like the opposite to that, where it's a bit more punky, more dangerous sounding, and I love both. But yeah, I'm really into those. There was a band called or an artist called Eve's Tumor, which came out on Warp tail end of last year, and I really liked that. I liked Tomahawk's new album last year as well, and I liked Turnstile. Did you hear that album? Glow?
Oh yes, yeah.
That was really
big
good. We were
things
lucky
in
enough to
the
see
future.
it live actually when they played at the Forum.
Certainly they've got a rocket attached to them at the minute. They're definitely heading in the right direction, Turnstile. Really fascinating to get that insight, and definitely some bands there that we'll be checking out, and obviously listeners, you need to be checking out as well. Head to I believe Cool Things Records have their own Bandcamp website, and obviously you can go on there and check out the roster on there, which is great. So before we move on to the next bit, I feel I'd be amiss, because it sounded like there was a potential story a few minutes ago when we were talking about barking on the album. So I feel that I need to ask about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the last track on the record is called We Will Learn to Bark. And as I said earlier, like a lot of the recording side, or at least at the demo stage, like vocally, I was in this room or in my flat, and the last thing you want is to be kind of screaming and shouting. So it forced me to record a lot of it in the lower register of my voice and explore that. which I really, you know, I'm glad I did, because I'm really pleased with the result. But one of the tracks, there was a section, and it was, you know, in my head, and it had to kind of kick off, and I was like, you know, this whole record has been like, break down the barriers, don't, you know, make the most out of the situation you're in, and don't let things stop you. Just do it in the way that you can with the limited resources. And I was, oh, I could have just gone, oh, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it. But I spoke to my wife, who was like kind of watching telly in the other room, and I went, I'm just going out, I'm just going out. And I took my laptop and my microphone, and I drove out into the middle of nowhere, and I was just literally just in there. And you'll hear it on the end of the record, I kind of like evolve into barking, or devolve into barking of some kind. And I'm just there going, rah, 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 like, and there's people like walking past going like, what? And I'm just in the front of my car like doing it. And I did feel a bit of a plonker doing it, but I was like, no, like, I'm not going to let them stop me. It was my only way of doing anything. We couldn't go out.
Yeah.
I couldn't go to a studio. I didn't have any resource to do it, or any space to do it either. So I was just kind of stuck. But I went and did that, and, you know, I didn't get arrested anyway.
Well, certainly brings new meaning to the word dogging. Oh. Moving quickly on. So obviously, you know, bands performing on record is one thing, but obviously the thing that everyone loves most about music is live music. Obviously that's been stifled greatly over the past couple of years, but it is back. So for listeners that are enjoying what they're hearing from Bait, you know, when might they get to see Bait perform live? Have you got anything on the horizon?
Yeah, so we've got a launch show that was scheduled for which was scheduled for the 1st of April, but unfortunately, due to extenuating circumstances, we've had to postpone that until we get a new date. So there is going to be a launch show, which will be in our hometown, Southend, and so for that show, the live lineup is going to be slightly different to the lineup before. We've got like another guitarist who's going to be joining us on stage, and Liam, from A Cause in Distress, the band I mentioned, he's going to be sort of taking the role on synths, and it's been sounding great. But we're having to postpone that show until a new date. So as soon as we get the date, we will be posting it all over the socials, and making people come to it if they can, if they're in the area. But yeah, we'll be looking for shows throughout. There'll be a handful of shows, I believe, throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, and as you touched on, the best place for listeners to be able to keep track of where they can catch you live is by following you on social media. So obviously they want to head to Instagram and Twitter, where it's hate_bait, and Facebook, where it is simply hate bait. So
yeah, I'm not too sure why it's different, but it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah, reeling off the different ats for the social medias with bands, and obviously, yeah, sometimes there's great divergences. But it was an interesting chat I had with an artist called Beans on Toast, because obviously he struggles greatly with Google searches for his name, because it normally brings up Jamie Oliver recipes. Yeah, and Bait, similarly, when I was researching for the interview, you type in Bait and you're going to get a lot of fishing products. But yeah, so
and
you
there was
want
a film that came out. There was a film that came out a couple of years ago, which was really good actually. It's in black and white, and it's in. I don't know if you saw it. It's well worth watching. Yeah,
no, well, obviously listeners, make sure you follow the band on social media so you can keep up to date with any live dates coming up, and also obviously check out Sea Change. It is out on April 1st, so make sure you are listening to that on streaming platforms if that is your choice, or preferably buy the lovely LP that we have seen on display. So the final portion of our Discover New Music podcast is called Setlist Science, and I ask the interviewee their thoughts on the curation of set lists and how much attention they pay to it. So obviously you've got a unique perspective over many years in the industry in different bands. When you are playing live, how much attention do you pay to that structure in the set list? Have you got any rules that you try to follow, perhaps?
So obviously each kind of band is different. What I don't personally like, and this is just me, is where it's stop start. So you stop after every song and you go like, that song was so and so. Thank you very much. This one's called, and it seems a little bit kind of like it's in the 1950s or something, and you introduce every song and talk about the guys that are on it and what it means, and that would work for some people, but not for me. I think my kind of policy with set lists is to go blazing in with like an absolute stone cold killer of a tune, something that's going to get people, pumping in some way. And I like to do it in kind of like sets. So like I like kind of group songs together. So it'd be like, a group of like 3 or 4 tunes, and then stop and kind of have a breather and maybe think about, not scripted, but think about like addressing the audience or whatever. Then in for another, and then a bit more of that, and then kind of and just do it so it's kind of, you're not stopping after every tune. There's a bit of momentum, and tracks can kind of they can bleed across into each other, and you can maybe have a bit of fun with the structure and deliver something that's a little bit different than just what it'd be like to just put the CD on and listen.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm a big believer that songs are kind of living entities, and obviously can evolve and adapt over time, and obviously live experimentation, as you said, can give the audience something unique, compared to just sitting at home and sticking the record on. So
I think so. I think that's the way to go.
No, thank you for your input on that. Always really interesting to have that chat and get different artists' perspectives on it. And thank you very much for joining me and having this chat. It's been really interesting. We've really enjoyed TV personality and drama, and obviously our sneak peek of the album. We've really enjoyed that as well. So listeners, Sea Change, April 1st. Make sure you are checking that one out. Michael, I say thank you. What would be your final message for listeners today?
I don't know. Take it easy. I think take it easy. It's still a weird world at the moment. There's a lot of crap going on, and if you do get COVID, take it easy, because I think you can easily overestimate or underestimate. Sorry, how knackered you're going to be. So just take care.
Take care and check out Sea Change. That's the message.
And that was probably, I was trying to go for something more like
humane,
humanitarian. But actually, what I really mean is go out and buy the album.
No, thank you very much, Michael, for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us for that edition of the Discover New Music podcast. We hope you enjoyed that chat there with Bait. Make sure you check out their debut album, Sea Change, and follow them on social media. And of course, usual reminders to end us, if you would follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt, and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And again, if you would, please do hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, wherever you are watching or listening. And we will catch you soon for another edition of the Discover New Music podcast.